The first thing, today is Wednesday, May 22nd, 2019. My name is Sandy Halem, and I am interviewing Mae Prisby and Mae at the Portage County Senior Center. When and where were you born?
At 1204 Franklin Avenue in Kent,
And what year?
1921.
And so when did your parents come?
My parents came my father came in about 1914 with when got these black men from the southern part of the United States to work on the Erie Railroad. And they stayed in boxcars. My dad was from Georgia, and the other people was from the southern part, and they had a blacksmith, and his name was Tom Tompkins, and my dad said he was a good blacksmith. And he worked in there at the Roundhouse. You've heard of the Roundhouse?
Off of Franklin?
No.
No. Oh no, the Roundhouse.
The Roundhouse is where the engines turn around.
Okay.
You couldn't have been, it had to have been in a great big space, because the engine when they come to Kent, they turned around and went back to Chicago. Those that wasn't going to New York. And so we got up, I used to like to go up there and see the trains get on the tracks, and they turn these great big locomotives. And these locomotives were of coal, you know. They didn't have diesel, they had coal. And and the funny thing about it, they used to have Midnight Coal Company. You know what that was?
No.
Well, I tell you, Midnight Coal Company, the people there years ago, we burned coal. We didn't know nothing else, you know, because nobody had a gas furnace. So they would get coal. So the engines, after they fill up the cars with coal, the engineers, when they got to Kent, they would slow down. And they had a group of fellas with sacks, and they would get near the track, and the others would jump on the train and throw the coal off, and the others on the grounds would pick up the coal. And that's what they called them, the Midnight Coal Company. And then we didn't have electric refrigerators, we had gas. Everybody had gas refrigerators. And one time I was coming from Michigan, and I saw the people out on the lake cutting ice to put in their storage bin to sell to people that didn't have refrigerators. People had ice boxes. And when they come by, they had a sign, and the people used to drop 25 and 50 pounds of ice into their house. And of course, they had a drip, you know, where you could drip the things, you know, and all like that. And we had a dairyman. Of course, they didn't know nothing about homogenized milk. It was pasteurized, and the milk and the cream was at the top, and the milk is at the bottom. And so after people started making homogenized milk, that's when they started disagreeing with the milk they put in their bodies. A lot of people couldn't drink homogenized milk, and they started getting goat's milk and everything other kind of milk, you know, everything. But my dad used to live there in a house that was not too far from Roosevelt, on the same street. And he used to walk to work. And he had to walk to work, and he walked through the cemetery, and he walked through the swinging bridge. Yeah, and this bridge would take him right to his job. He would swing, you know, the bridge would swing. And of course, I've been there. And then we were introduced to Standing Rock. But Standing Rock wasn't always at the same position. That rock moved. Because, you know, they say the Indians was chasing Brady, and he jumped on the land and jumped on the rock and to the other side, you know. We learned all about that in history. But then my dad bought a house on Franklin Avenue, and everybody wanted to know, how did he buy a house on Franklin Avenue when there was not allowed any blacks on that street? So we were on that street for a long time. Me and the Tompkins lived next door to us. And until they, no, the Tompkins, yeah, until Reverend Thomas came and bought the house, and then they called her Tontine, that means aunt. They were supposed to be from Louisiana. And so we played with them Tompkins until Reverend Thomas and his family moved around. And then I started the school on the 4th grade.
In the fourth grade?
No, I started, and when I got
At the
to the
South-
4th grade,
at the,
at South School. And our teacher's name was Mrs. Holden. That's how they got that name, their high school name. She was our principal at South School. And I can remember when we were playing in a playground, we had a teacher named Mrs. Rika. And Mrs. Rika had a boyfriend that drove a dirigible. So when he would come over to school, he'd get real low and slow, and he'd drop a message. And we would take the message, and we know who it was for, and we'd take it into her.
What was the South School like?
Oh, it was real nice. You know, locking, you're talking about locking up. They didn't have to worry about locking any doors, because one day we were playing over there, and some kids said, and they pulled the door, and the door came open. She said, "This door's open." And I said, "Okay," but nobody went in there, because we knew if we went in that door, our parents would get after us. We told our parents about it, and we did not go in any room in that house, in that building, to play and see what was there. So when I was in the 4th grade, the teacher says, "I'm going to have to go to the office." So they went to the office, and at that time, my mother was starting to give me music lessons. And the kid said, "Eddie Mae, why don't you play us a song while the teacher's gone?" And I said, "No," for a while. Then I started playing. And then when the teacher came back to the room, the kids instead of running around were sitting down singing. So every time the teacher left, she says, "I got to go to the office. Eddie Mae, you go to the piano." And then my mother, we had different, our religions were different. We were together. You could be one church, but you were everything. The Catholics and the Baptists and the Methodists, they all had parties, programs together, you know. And we'd have Christmas parties, and Santa Claus would come down with his big truck in the neighborhood and give out candy. All this big stuff, candy, televisions and radios. And kids used to make their radios. You make them. The boys made the radios. Because I forget what they made it out of, but they made their radios because we only had something we could dream. And when Jack Armstrong, the All-American Glory, or that mystery story come up, we all sit down by the telephone, by the radio, and we listen. And everybody was quiet, you know. And
Tell me more about your father and the boxcar when he first came. What do you know about him?
well, he lived in a boxcar, but after he made money, he bought a house on Moncador Road. It was a big house. It had a room, it had a hall all the way through the house. And they had bedrooms, no bathrooms. And they got their water from down there behind Lamson Session. Lamson Session was there, you know. And they would go down, and upstairs was the bedrooms. I don't know how many rows of bed there was, but he sent for his mother and his brother and sister. Because my uncle went to Kent State. At that time, Kent State would let the students come, but you couldn't live on campus. You couldn't live in the dormitories. So the people in the neighborhood, the black
You're
people
talking about the black students who came.
yeah, and so the ministers and the college and different people got together to try to break this down. Now there was no flag bearing or nothing that's strikes or demonstration, but our parents said, "You get your education." Education was more important to us than segregation at that time. We couldn't eat in the restaurants.
You couldn't eat at the student center? Could you eat? Was there any
No.
place on campus?
No.
And you couldn't eat because you were black?
Yeah. And then and then you couldn't send and the white people wouldn't take in black students because if they go to their house, they said we don't have any room. So the college and the ministers and the other people got together and they said, well, if they can't rent to you, they need to put their names up in the college for housing, and that helped break it down. And there was a woman that stayed at our house. Her name was Verna Stikes. You know, she graduated from. She stayed at our house, and she graduated from Kent State, and she got to be out. She was a social. She's something down in Canton, but she got an education, and she stayed at my house, at my mother's house, you know, for $5 a month.
Wow.
$5 a month. But my mother was interested in college students, you know.
What year was that? What you're talking about?
Well, I was about 10 or 12 years old. Yeah. Because you know, people talk to kids then, and kids would sit down and they'd listen. You know, and they'd tell what happened and how they went. Because I went to Kent State for a year or so. And I went to school with a fellow named Johnny Proctor. I don't know if you know him. I would go to school and he said, hey, Eddie Mae, I want you to help me on my spelling. I can't spell worth a dime. But he got a lead in the play Animal Caster on the television. And he got a play up at the Kent State that he participated in. And this woman, made a book, Between the Fences. And Norma Stikes, that was her name, Norma. And then she got married, her name was Mercer Ray.
Marcia Ray.
Yeah.
I taught with her.
Oh, you did?
She was one of my I went to her husband's funeral, a dear friend.
Oh, wasn't she? Uh-huh.
Dear.
She would come to the church when we had meetings, and she would ask him some questions that was real tight. And she would see me, and she said, Eddie Mae, I remember your mother when your mother did this and your mother did that. And all the other people in the neighborhood, they took in, the black people in the neighborhood, they took in the colleges. Because there was a man, I don't want to call his name, he had a business uptown. He's Italian, but he couldn't build past Summit. So he built out there on Water Street. And then there was Fagel. Fagel had a whole, but he didn't hire blacks. And I remember working with a girl. She said, my brother came here, and he got a job at Twin Lakes, but he can't understand English. I said, well, how did he get hired? Well, we're going to help him. See, they still didn't hire no black. But that's all right. We were getting education. He got all his degrees, and he went down to Kentucky or Virginia, and he got a job as a principal teaching school. And so did all the rest of the people. And then my mother was taking in both black and white. And she had this white Polish student moving with her. And all he had for breakfast in the morning was popcorn. And so they didn't eat too good. So my mother, she would fix dinner for them sometime. And then if they wanted to cook, they could cook, but they had to leave the kitchen clean. And they did. They kept the kitchen real clean, and he did a real good job. And so then they finally, I don't know how, so then he brought his brothers and sisters up, because they all needed that great big space. And there was a church there on, I think, on College Avenue, and it's this church on Dot Street. And I don't know who said, people don't have enough for two, black people don't have enough for two people. Why don't you get together and get a union church, make a union? So that's how Union Baptist was fit. And I started playing for them when I was 12 years old. Through the backyard fence, you know how neighbors are. There was a house next door to the church. It's still on now. And Mrs. Crawford lived there. And Mrs. Crawford was telling my mother, we have a choir, but we have a woman, she can play for the senior choir, but we don't have one for the junior choir. So she said, oh, my daughter will play. So she come into the house and said, you're going to play the piano for the Baptist church. She didn't ask me.
Where did you learn to play the piano?
Well, everybody had a piano, and I played by ear. And my dad and mother said one time I was asleep, and they woke up, and they heard the piano going. It was me sitting down at the piano. So they put me to bed. But I've always played, I could play, just like, I don't need music to play everything. Because if I'm following anybody, I get a chord. And I never play the melody for people who sing. Because they can't, following me would take away from the way they feel. And I could chord. They don't need to hear every note I play. So then I wrote some things. I started laying pipes in the learned piano in the 4th grade at South School. Graduated from Roosevelt in 39.
39.
Attended Kent State for a year, and I married Eugene Prisby in 1941. And
Where did your husband come from?
he come from Ravenna here.
And he was living in Kent?
No, no, he wasn't. He would hitchhike.
Oh.
No, he'd come to see me in Kent. Gas was 15 cents a gallon. And we didn't even have 15 cents to put in gas. So we got together with some of the kids.
What was your maiden name?
Brown. Yeah, my dad's name was Henry Kellum Brown.
Henry Kellum.
Yeah, and my uncle's name was Caleb. He's the one. And then we had twin uncles, Edwin and Edwin. So I don't know who I was named after. Since I'm Eddie, I don't know if I was named Edward or after Edwin. And then we had his sisters was Flora. Flora was the one that, seeing that I got to church, she took me to church and to Mass and everything. And the people, I made my first communion at the church there in Kent.
Yes, St. Patrick's.
Yeah, St. Patrick.
Was your whole family Catholic?
No, my mother wasn't. My mother was Methodist. She belonged, she and my grandmother, his mother helped start the Methodist church in Kent. But we were all in, what's the name, was a member of RSVP, a president, Sanding Portage County, aging. So I joined that. I joined a lot of community things. And when I got to playing, I didn't know you got picked for playing. I never expected money, and I still don't. I get a little bit, but I never ask for money. And I go to play with people. They say, "Can you play?" Yeah. And so I go and play.
Can I ask you a question? Where did your husband work? What kind of work did he do?
Well, he did construction work.
Was that something he could get a lot of work?
Oh, yeah, he did. And then he got to work on the railroad.
I was going to say, okay.
Yeah, he worked building houses. That's how we got to build our house, because he knew how to build. He knew how, and his brothers were plasterers, so our house is a plastered house with hard. Well, it's a mess now, because after everybody moved out, they moved back in. And so my daughter and my son both have strokes, and my grandson and his family, they live downstairs. I never go downstairs for anything. We have bedrooms and family room and everything. It's a Lincoln home.
Oh.
And so and I like it there, I don't think I want a big town, and I don't like fences, the kind that we can't see. I want to be a neighbor to say hi.
Now, you said that there were some places in Kent where blacks could not work.
Oh yeah,
But the railroad could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, the railroad and there was a B&O and the Erie Railroad, and they all worked on the railroad. Some of them they were called Gandy dancers. Yeah, but my husband worked on their building. He was building tracks, lane track. But when they had a wreck, he was the only person they found around here that could go to this wreck and get them trains back on the track in a certain length of time. And he was good at everything. That's why we built a house. We never could have built a house if he hadn't known what to do. And so, and the house is up there on Crane Avenue.
Right.
Yeah. And so was the shop. The what do you call it? thing where the engines turn around.
Roundhouse.
Oh, yeah, See me? That's what old age gets for you.
Now, one more thing about people who are listening to this won't understand about the boxcar. The boxcar was an actual Erie Railroad boxcar?
Yeah, you see boxcars every day now.
Right.
And then sometime, and they come by the neighborhood, and they never bothered anybody. My mother fed them.
These are people who were riding the rails?
Yeah, because my dad gave him a note. And he'd give him his lunch, and after he got through with his lunch, he'd give him a note, and they'd bring it home and knock on the door and give it to my mother. And she'd say, come on in, I'll cook you something. And she took them in the kitchen, and she fixed them something.
These were just people who were working in the railroad, or they were riding the rails?
Hobos.
The hobos.
Yeah, they're hobos,
What,
yeah.
is this around the Depression?
I don't know the Depression, no, we'd had everything we wanted.
Yeah.
We didn't know. And then we saw families traveling in boxcars.
Really?
Yeah. But one thing about hobos, they had good shoes. They had good shoes. I never seen a hobo that had shoes on his feet that wasn't worn out. For some reason, and they never bothered the kids, and the kids would holler at them. We knew they were hobos when they walked through the neighborhood, but they didn't bother anybody. And so then after my husband got this house, because we lived on Franklin Avenue when we were born, but we used to go to my grandmother's house that my dad bought on Mogador Road. I didn't like it because it didn't have an inside toilet. But it had kerosene lamps, and every morning they would clean the lamps and everything. It was neat. I couldn't say nothing about the neatness. And they had the stove, wooden stove you could buy and everything.
And that was his mother from Georgia, right?
Yeah, because my mother's mother was, I think she was dead. But her father came up here. He was a pastor. His name was Watkins. She was a Watkins before she got to be a Brown. And then one come up, and then she came up, and then after a while her sister came up. Then we had other people that come up from the South that needed a place, and it was easy to get a place at a black house. And so one family come up, and they lived out there on, these routes have changed. Route 5 used to go through Brady Lake. Mm-hmm. And Route 5 used to come by, 261 used to come by Franklin Avenue. And then, of course, when they built Kent State University, what is a factory, it was a library then, and they were going to build it, but then they had that whole building is floated. They call the Army Engineers in, and that whole factory museum is floated.
Now, which building would this be?
It was a library then.
Right.
But it's a museum of history.
It's the Fashion Museum.
Museum now.
Rockwell.
Yeah.
Rockwell.
And so that was Route 5. All these roads, I can't get used to changing all these roads.
Now, tell me a little more about the South End, because the South End is one of the oldest sections, and it was home primarily to which groups of people?
Well, the Italians and the blacks, they did call them Negroes then. Nobody called them blacks. Then the Italians, the Negroes, the Polish. Because Franklin on Harris Street had all the Polish people. Because the Gabasinis, the Seppis, and the Flogs and everything, they lived on. And on Cherry Street, it was a little bit of everything on Cherry Street. They had houses on, and they had a store on every corner from Main Street down to Cherry Street. Italian stores, and they raised their family on them stores. There was Google's, there was Mandalari, there was Serrani, there was Paskey, there was Luce, and Laneri, and they took up every corner. Armstrong, they took up every corner.
With a little store.
Yeah.
And what was in the store?
Groceries. You can go and open an account, and I'll be back to pay you. And they paid them every payday. They would open an account of them, Because I used to go over there and get stuff from the Linares when they were across the street. They were across the street before they went out. And then that store was there, and the school, there was a field. We used to play ball. And the field over there where the school is now. And the coach told my son graduated from Roosevelt. He was quite a star. After that, he went to Cincinnati. And he played football, and he got the longest punt return in the history of Cincinnati. And then he coached the Buffalo Bills, and he played with the Denver Broncos.
And his name was Prisby.
Yeah.
What's his first name?
Errol.
Errol Prisby.
Yeah, he died of Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh.
Yeah, at an early age, you know. So we would go over the field, and the coach in the summertime would leave the materials up to him, because the coach said, I can't train these boys because they say I'll be out, but I'm going to leave the things on your front porch, and you could go and take them across the field. And he did it. And I'd come home sometime. He had the whole football team in the kitchen teaching them how to make hamburger and fried oysters, fried lobster, tuna, and teaching them how to cook. But they cleaned the kitchen up. They didn't leave it a mess.
And these were kids from Roosevelt?
Yeah, they were boys, and they were boys from Twin Lakes.
Oh.
In fact, when I was there, we used to go up on Park Avenue. That's where the mayor stayed, on Park Avenue. We used to go, Lucille and I, some of the girls, we had skates. And we would skate up there. And I would go, and as soon as I get up there, Eddie, man, you play the piano, why don't you start, and we'll sing. So I play the piano. Everywhere I go, I play the piano. I don't get to dance. I got to play the piano.
That's a good story. When did you move out of Kent?
Well, let's see, I lived in Kent when I got married. We stayed with Mom and Dad. And then Jean's grandmother was 90-some years old. She was a sweet old lady. She was blonde and blue-eyed. Yeah, Milton. Blonde and blue-eyed. But she never tried to pass. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because my mother-in-law, Jean's mother, a cab came down to her house, and he said, lady, I don't know if you want to ride in the back. We're going to pick up some colored people, and I don't know if you want to ride with them. And she said, for your information, I want you to know I'm colored. But that went on a long time before all this segregation mess started, and they got so. But just like you say, a lot of people don't know who they are. Because his uncle, they came from Canada, Fulham, he worked 40 years. He worked 40 years at City Hospital, and they didn't know he was black until he got sick. See, because they didn't, that's because he wasn't black, they didn't show it, they didn't flaunt it, you know. They were my husband's people, you know. And my mother was Indian, part Indian, you could see these high cheekbones. And my uncle used to say, I don't know why you gonna drink, because when the Indians get to drinking, they get real loud. So he used to tease. And then we went to Kent Roosevelt, and then Kent at that time didn't have any junior high school.
That's right.
Yeah, we went to when I went to 6th grade, from the 6th grade up to the other grades, and then we walked to school. The only kids that rode to school was the kids from Brady Lake. If you lived over 3 miles, you could get a ride on the bus. But other than that, we walked to school, and we walked 2 and 3 times, a couple times a day. I come home and eat, and I go back up to choir practice. You know, I was in the choir, and we did a lot of things. We had this, we had a lot of school activities, you know. But, and then my uncle and aunt, my uncle was graduating, and when I was going to college, he had his car. He had a brand new car, and he let me drive his car. He was good, that one uncle was, the other twin uncle.
Now, how did the people, all these people who lived together in the South End, and they couldn't buy houses anywhere else?
Yeah.
They couldn't get financing, I know.
Eventually, yeah.
How did you all get along?
I don't know. Huh?
How did you all get along together?
Oh, I got along good. Oh, our people next door to us had a garden. We shared out what we had. But we had one neighbor, that because some of his fruit dropped on our land, he cut it down. And my mother said, "Oh, don't cut that down. I won't eat none of your fruit." And because that, he cut it down. So
And it was because you were all black?
He was black too, but he was just funny.
Not so funny.
Yeah, not so funny. And then we went to school, and then there was Robin Hood. They didn't. Now they had a colored black cook, but they
At
didn't
the
have
Robin
no.
Hood?
And then one time the girls said, "Eddie Mae, we're going to go downtown and eat. You want to go with us?" And I said to myself, "Oh, now they ain't hot. They don't let no colored eat there." So I went anyhow with them. So
And this is to the Robin Hood?
No, this was to that. It was that a station restaurant there by the railroad track. There was a restaurant there.
I don't. Oh, in the railroad?
No, they had it. They opened it up after we had, we started the school. Kent was building, and I don't know who owned it. I couldn't tell you, but I know the let's see, the people that own Oak Rubber owned the market there, and there used to be a drugstore on the corner of Main and Water on the north side, and they had this restaurant. They built. I guess they rented it out, and so the girls say, "Eddie, Mae, come down and eat with us." I said, "I don't know whether I'm going to go down, whether this man want to feed me or not." But I went in there with those girls, and he was so nice. He said, "You're going to come back again, ain't you?" But I've always had good luck with people. Because, Shakespeare said all the world's a stage. And when I go to these places and I'm waiting on the train, them people are entertaining me walking by me. And so I consider them, they don't know how I feel. But I think some of them are pretty nasty, And so I said, what one skeleton said to the other, don't you? What color was you? And let's see, I moved to Ravenna in the 50s.
In the 50s.
Joined the
Okay.
Immaculate Conception Church. And they're the only person I had trouble with when I was coming up. I went in and I sit down in the pew, and some woman came and she genuflected, and she went to come down. She looked down and saw me and almost knocked the women out, getting out of the pews. And I said, I hope she's not going to take communion. So then I went to Mass another time, and I sat in the pew, and none of that pew they sat in. The people were lined up against the wall, and that pew of mine was empty. So when they was talking about, and my husband joined the family group movement, and there was a nice group of married couples. And so we was talking about church, and I said how crowded it was. I said, "You want to get a seat?" I said, "I'll go there early, and you can come there as late as you want, and I guarantee you'll have a seat." But I don't believe in cussing. I don't cuss people out, because you can use a better language than cuss. And I don't believe in swearing, And so, became a member of the Catholic Daughters. Now, I got to be, first they didn't want to play the piano. So the first thing they do wanted me to play an organist. And then later on, they wanted a president. And then they got me. I said, "How do you people move from that to the president when you said you had to go by steps?" And I didn't want to go because I couldn't call the people's name. Them people had the funniest name. Amelia DiGirolamo and all them funny. So it was a long time before I became a regent. And when I would go to the conventions, they had 500 and 600 people. And I had to give a talk. And they were really nice. I had a couple funny people with their friends. And they tried to be funny, but their friends were nice. So they had to be. Yeah. And I worked at Oak Rubber for 23
Oh, you
years.
did?
Yeah. And when I first went there, this woman, when I first went in there, that's into the room, they come in, they saw me, they took the chairs and moved on the other side of the room. And I said, that's interesting. So I kept on reading a book. I ignored them. So then we started going to the machine. This woman said, "Who gonna train her?" Mom said, "I ain't." Mom said, "Who gonna train her?" And so the Lord always has somebody. The Lord always has somebody. I believe in that. So this woman said, "You come with me, honey. I'll train you." So I went with her. And it was 6 months later, they asked me to be their factory steward. And I told the boss, "Now, I'm a union steward, but I'm not here," and I told them people, "I'm not here to boss you people. I'm here to go between you people. But I'm not your boss. I just have to teach you what the job is. And I'm going to teach you the best way I can, and the shortcuts. But I said, I'm not to tell you what to do." And that's how we did, for a long time. And then I was a welder at Goldberg. And,
A welder?
yeah. They hired these black women, and they hired them after, they couldn't get nobody else. They hired them for the second shift. And so we went and we worked the second shift. So then they go.
When was that? What time was that?
Second shift was 3 to 11. So then they had to be cut back in the production or something. So they laid all of us off, the black ones off. So we went to union meeting, and the union, they have a good union. The union said they hired you when they needed you. I said, "You people go home, and we'll call you back, and you'll get paid for every day you miss." And he was right. Now, they had a good union, because they fought the company. Because Oak Rubber said, I asked the people at Oak Rubber about the union. He said, "We got to ask the boss." I said, "You what? You got to be kidding. You got to ask the boss." I said, "Well," but I didn't say not get along. And I told the supervisor, I said, "I'm the supervisor. I'm here to represent these people. I'm not here to run the place. Now, if I have a problem, I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you who told me." Because when you see that person, you're always going to remember that name. So I didn't, and then I received a plaque of on the others from the Knights of Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
I got a received an Jetline Award from Kent State. They had and I played, and they gave me an award. Member of Immaculate Conception, Senior Young at Heart. That's what I go to the third Monday. We have a nice group. You ought to come and visit us sometime. Attended the Senior Center on Cleveland Road. Member of the Steel Center Seniors.
Steels, yeah. I see you all the time there.
Volunteer now. And on Fridays from 9 to 11 to play the piano. But
That's at Robin, yeah, it's UH now.
Yeah,
the hospital.
oh yeah.
You come up there.
And and I was surprised. You know Roger Chipola. How's he doing?
Good. He's doing good. He's doing very good today. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because he used to come down here all the time. He always comes and sits and talks to me. And
now you do you get on the bus in the morning to go play that piano.
Yeah, the powder bus picks me up, and then they're there with a wheelchair. If the bus goes in, they see me in a wheelchair, and they got that wheelchair right there at the bus. And then at 12 o'clock, the bus is there to pick me up. And then the bus comes when I get through at 11 o'clock. The wheelchair is there to take me down to the cafeteria. And then they've got a Bob Evans refreshment center there now.
Oh.
Yeah. They got chairs and a couple of tables and couches where you can sit there and order. They have the best soup. And every day I get a soup every time I go there. And it's, what's that vegetable?
I wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
When the disturbances happened with both the Black United students and up at Kent State, and they were walking out, and then later the anti-war and the shootings at Kent State, what were your feelings about those times?
Well, my feelings was, it said, when it first started, the black students said, they called it the National Guards. And the National Guards were supposed to not be prejudiced towards black people. So they told the blacks to get out of the college, and go home. My daughter was going to school then.
Is this 1970?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My daughter was going to school, and so she called for us to come and pick her up. So we went to pick her up, and she was going up the steps, and a rat had been after them, and she had tear gas. They had sprayed the tear gas. But in Ravenna, and Kit, we wouldn't even know it, but in Ravenna we saw the courtyard all littered with men that wanted to join. They wanted men, volunteers, you know. And so
To join the guard, or what? Oh, to join the...
joined the group. That they figured they was going to spread to the neighborhood, but they never bothered the neighborhood, you know. They was after, and we saw this girl kneeling down praying, and so it went on after that. But then after that, things sort of got better. So because I had people, this girl that when she's one of the first that stayed at the dormitory, and she used to come down to my house, and then they had that skating ring out there, and the kids would go skating at the skating ring, and then they tore it down because the college students like that. In fact, I was a teacher's aide one day, and so I was a scout leader, and the kids wanted to go skating, and I hadn't been skating in how many years. I said, okay, I'll take you skating. We'll take somebody to help me. So I kept going around. So me and my daughter, we took somebody skating. We took the group skating, you know. And then I was a member of the Youngstown Catholic Charity Society, and Monsignor Sabatina, you know him? He died, and he left me $10,000. But you ought to see what he left them other people, $60,000, $50,000. He had over $2 million. I got the statement. He had over $2 million or more in his funds. And he would program for 20 years. He was of the Youngstown district. He was a natural advisor, and he knew how to play the stock market. And he was good because a lot of times when I would play for the holiday for Sundays, and holiday meetings inside of Sunday, I'd never put it down. And so when I go on vacation, he would have me a check for $200. He said, Eddie Mae, you never charge for the extra days that you play. So he would, give me a check.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Are we coming to the...
No,
No? Good.
about 50.
Yeah, so...
What? Okay, that's a wonderful story. What other things about your... Are you 98 now?
97.
97?
I'll be December 8th, my birthday, Immaculate Conception Day. All Catholics celebrate my birthday.
Okay, in your 97 years,
Yeah.
if people listen to this, what do you want them to know about your life?
I tell
And what
you,
life was like?
I said, life is nice. I said, don't try to, when people tell you something and you're mad, you can't act as if you're mad. You listen and you go pray. Pray for peace of mind. That's what I pray for, peace of mind, and for able to bear the burdens that I have to bear. And the people that said them things, I hope that God wakes them up, just like I hope he wakes up Crump.
Wakes them up.
Wake him up.
Yeah.
Because he is so, and then when he called that man ISOB and all like that, I could never cuss anybody. I don't care how mad I get. I've never cussed anybody. My kids or no one else. And my husband never cussed. I never heard my parents cuss. Women were now, people say anything in front of women now. You go up there and they don't, women, because my mother, she took in other students because her and my dad got divorced, and so she took in other college students. But then they knew that where they did the kitchen, that's where they had to do it when they come out. And the house was never cluttered. My mother kept a nice house. And when we go on trips, we clean house.
Yeah.
I said, Mama, why we got to clean house? We ain't going to be here.
Did you go back to the South where your family was from and visit?
I
in
did.
Georgia?
I visited. I never went to Georgia, but I went to Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. But I heard that my family had come up, and some of them were living in Cleveland. And my uncle went down to Daytona and found out they were up here. So then we got in touch with them, and then they were educated too. So just about all my kids were educated, and I believed in education, although they didn't like the way they did it, you know. Made them go to school and all like that. But you have to love people. You can't hate people to try to patronize them too, you know, and pat them on the back. And remember the guild a guild of youngsters, member of the church of group. I had a troop group that that I used to belong to. Vice president, church member, United, and whenever somebody asked me to do something, and when I go somewhere, 'cause one time I went somewhere, and they asked me to come, and they said, "She gonna play? They sit at the table. They don't have to say nothing. They'll sit at the table when they see me coming there, so I won't sit there. I don't want to sit there anyhow. I'll find a table all by myself."
Never bothered you.
No, never bothered me.
Yeah.
And so when I went and I took my crocheting, that's what happens. I always found something to do. I took my crocheting and my books. Yeah, and I did that, yeah. And I saw more things going on inside a plane station and a train station.
Did you go to the depot in Kent?
Yeah. My mother would take us to Chicago.
What did it look like in the inside? And they had a little place to eat there.
Well, they didn't have that then.
Okay.
They only had that when this
Waiting room.
closed up.
Yeah.
And then I went and ate there. But then on the train, it was good, the best Western sandwich I ever had. The waiters would come back. I was 18, you know. They said, "Well, lady, would you like to come back and eat with us? We got some nice pie or cake." Say, we like to treat people like, you know, if they're children, we treat them right. They weren't, you know, try to get to ninth base with me. They were just good, down people. And some of them knew my dad, you know, and so I got along. And then my son, he worked at United Airlines.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I would fly. Yeah. And then he got to be with United Steel, and then he got the CEO, and every time they would put up a new plant, he would go and run it for them. Yeah, and he was a people's man. He'd say, "Mom, I leave my door open, and if any of the guys have trouble, they want to come in and talk and see about it, you know, I'll have it, you know." Sometimes people talking, you know, and you just listen, and then, you know, they'll say nothing. Just getting it out is pretty good, you know. So.
How many children did you have?
7. Every time I got one ready for school, here come another one.
How many boys and how many girls?
I had 2 boys and 5 girls.
Wow.
So I had an awful good time with the people I know, and there's probably other things in between I probably forgot to tell you, but
Well, we can always come back.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'll write it down and then
Yeah,
tell
you
you
write-
about it.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know. Well, this is good. People get a real sense of how life was like for you.
Yeah, you know, people were, and everybody had a garden. Now they're talking about all these people getting disease from these vegetables. I can see how they get it, because they're in the field. They got to go to the bathroom. They go there, and then they got to go around there and dig up that grass and food and stuff and eat all that. I wouldn't want to eat it either. So life is changing. You have to really. I'm glad I'm in my little house on Ravenna Avenue. I'm a millionaire, but nobody knows it. I got millions, but I said, but nobody can. I never lock my doors. Anybody can come in, and they can come in and talk. And I'm sitting out there in the house. Hello, Miss Prisby. But I'm just Eddie Mae. And if I had money, you know what I'd have to do? I'd have to build a fence to keep people out of my house. I don't have to build no fence. I'm the fence. Yeah, and they take care. Oh, Miss Prisby will take care of you. Ain't nobody gonna bother you, Miss Prisby. So that's the attitude. You treat people right. Eventually, it may take years, but if you got something to do within them years, like I did, raise kids, you got your hands full.